Here are the crypto top headlines covered in this video. Ripple Labs closes standard custody acquisition deal. Next, SEC considers spot Ether ETF application from Proshares. Also, CBDCs threat to freedom put under the microscope at Oslo conference. Welcome to Crypto Top Headlines, where there's no clickbait thumbnails or titles, and no speeches on my opinions, just bringing crypto's news to you. We have a quick request that doesn't cost you anything in order to help. Help us grow this channel to 1,000 subscribers by September, which would be our channel's 1-year anniversary. All we ask is that you click on the like and subscribe buttons as well as the notification bell. By clicking on these, it does help grow the channel, so thank you in advance for doing so. Now, on to these headlines. Our first top headline: Ripple Labs closes standard custody acquisition deal. Jack McDonald will remain CEO of Standard Custody while also serving in his new role as Senior Vice President of Stablecoins at Ripple. Ripple Labs closed its acquisition of Standard Custody, a digital asset custodian, on June 11th. The deal, first announced earlier this year, is central to Ripple's planned rollout of a United States dollar stablecoin and broader goals of real-world asset tokenization. As part of the deal, Standard Custody CEO Jack McDonald will be appointed as Ripple's Senior Vice President of Stablecoins while remaining as the CEO of Standard Custody. Ripple highlighted Standard Custody's licensing as a core feature of the digital asset custodian, pointing to Standard Custody's regulatory approval from the New York Department of Financial Services, or NYDFS, one of the strictest financial regulators when it comes to digital assets. The acquisition of Standard Custody follows Ripple's 2023 acquisition of MATIC, another digital asset custody firm, for $250 million. Ripple's purchase of MATIC was underscored by the belief that the institutional crypto custody industry will reach $10 trillion by 2030 as banks increasingly seek to provide digital asset custodial services to their customers. Included within the realm of custody services is the emergence of real-world asset tokenization, a market that could swell to over $800 trillion if all the world's capital assets are tokenized, according to Chainlink. Real-world asset tokenization has become a major focus for firms like Ripple Labs, Chainlink, and Algorand. The emerging tokenization market is widely believed to be the next big frontier for cryptocurrencies, blockchain, and digital assets. In May, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, or DTCC, published its report of a real-world asset tokenization pilot program conducted between the DTCC and several large banks, including JP Morgan, Edward Jones, and BNY Mellon, which leveraged Chainlink's CCIP interoperability protocol. The purpose of the experiment was to test the tokenization of fund data and simulate bringing real-world data on-chain. According to the DTCC's report, several benefits of blockchain tokenization were identified, including automated data management and reducing the need for record-keeping, real-world transparent APIs for customers, and the ability to create dynamic data management across the life cycle of an asset. Ultimately, the pilot program provided insight into potential future applications for banks and other institutional operators looking to leverage blockchain tokenization in their products and services, such as brokerage applications or automated data feeds. Let me pause here for a moment. If you're getting value out of this video, please click on the like and subscribe buttons as well as the notification bell. Our next top headline: SEC considers spot Ether ETF application from Proshares. The Commission approved 19B-4 filings from 8 asset managers in May, but they won't begin trading on U.S. exchanges until the SEC signs off on the S-1 registration statements. The United States Securities and Exchange Commission has added a spot Ether exchange-traded fund application from asset manager Proshares roughly 3 weeks after approving 8 of the investment vehicles. In a June 10th filing, the SEC said the New York Stock Exchange, ARCA, had proposed a rule change allowing it to list and trade shares of the Proshares Ethereum ETF. The Commission said it was soliciting public comments on the ETF application for 21 days after a publication in the Federal Register, giving the SEC 45 days to approve, disapprove, or extend the timeline for its decision. On May 23rd, the SEC officially approved 19B-4 filings from 8 asset management firms that applied to list and trade spot Ether ETFs on U.S. exchanges for the first time. Final approval requires the SEC to sign off on S-1 registration statements for the spot Ether ETFs before they can officially begin trading, a process that could take months, but some experts expect to go through sometime in July. Instinct initially says the Proshares ETF won't launch on day one with the other ETFs whenever that is, but who knows, said ETF analyst James Seifert in a June 10th X post. This is interesting. In October 2023, Proshares was one of the first asset managers to get approval from the SEC to list and trade shares of a spot investment vehicle tied to ETH futures. The company also offers a Bitcoin strategy ETF on NYSE ARCA under the ticker BITO. It's unclear whether the SEC will give the green light to Proshares spot Ether ETF offering after its initial approval. The filing only suggested the Commission would consider the application. Our next top headline, CBDCs threat to freedom put under the microscope at Oslo conference. Attendees of the 2024 Oslo Freedom Forum were united in addressing the threat that central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, pose to freedom around the globe. Central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, are a source of deep concern among the public. That was made clear at last week's Oslo Freedom Forum. While the risk of governments abusing their power is something that concerns many people, it is particularly true for those who are fighting for freedom under authoritarian regimes. If you are not familiar, the Oslo Freedom Forum is an annual gathering hosted by the Human Rights Foundation in Oslo, Norway. It's a time for human rights activists to share experiences under authoritarian regimes, as well as share calls to action for carving out a brighter future. For my part, I spent the first 2 days teaching people about what is happening in the world of CBDCs with the help of an installment piece created by the Human Rights Foundation. Again and again, I heard the same response from activists, government officials, and citizens. They would say, "I had no idea my country was doing this." It's also disheartening to see how much the public has been left out of the loop. In the context of the Oslo Freedom Forum, it's easy to see why people would be concerned by these developments. From Russia to Nicaragua, governments repeatedly turn to the financial system as a means to control the opposition. Consider the experiences of Carlos Chamorro, Jimmy Lai, and Alexei Navalny. Over a year ago, the Nicaraguan government declared Carlos Chamorro both stateless and a traitor to the country. His pension, his home, all of his assets were seized. What was his crime? Chamorro spoke out against Daniel Ortega's dictatorship and created a news organization that could be trusted to expose the regime. In Hong Kong, Jimmy Lai is currently facing life in prison for similar charges. Like Chamorro, Lai did not hold back in criticizing those in power and created a newspaper to help spread calls for democracy. In response to both Lai and others in the pro-democracy protests, the Hong Kong government froze financial accounts and seized assets to silence the opposition. Finally, in Russia, Alexei Navalny lost his life this year while imprisoned in a Russian labor camp. Navalny established the Anti-Corruption Foundation and routinely criticized Vladimir Putin's regime. Anna Chekovic, the chief financial officer at the Anti-Corruption Foundation, explained that the company's accounts were frozen before any charges had even been made. Worse yet, the government went after both individual employees and those connected to them. With this context established, it's easy to see why many people are so concerned. Governments around the world use the financial system as a means of control, and the rise of CBDCs offers the opportunity to greatly expand their existing powers. When it became time to take the stage on the third day, I was able to both elaborate on these concerns and also sit down for a discussion with Charlene Federico and Roger Huang, the authors, respectively, of The Bitcoin Leap and Would Mao Hold Bitcoin. As Federico and Huang outlined the rollout of CBDCs in Nigeria and China, a trend quickly emerged: government inefficiency. Federico noted how the Nigerian CBDC was clunky when it hit the shelves and earned a less than stellar reputation among the public. The official app was temporarily pulled from stores due to it having so many problems. Huang similarly added that you've asked central banks to effectively become tech companies, and in China, this is where you've actually seen massive failure. Yet government inefficiency may be the bright side of the story. Huang warned that there is a risk that governments will try to make up for their lack of competence through force. As he explained, the Chinese Communist Party derives its legitimacy from its purported competence to rule the Chinese people. Yet reports have emerged that even Chinese government employees have not been supportive of the program. Facing embarrassment, the Chinese government may introduce more drastic measures, could be in the future. In Nigeria, more drastic measures already came into force when the government orchestrated a cash shortage. Facing a 0.5% adoption rate of the CBDC, the government created a cash shortage that pushed some Nigerians into the CBDC. Then Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Godwin Emefiele heralded the measures as a success. However, as Federico noted, it was the last straw for many Nigerians. Yet these stories are only the beginning. If the rise of CBDCs continues, much more is at stake, especially for those fighting for human rights. Lai Xiaobo, winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, once recalled, "If our rice bowls were still in our hands of the Communist Party, people like us would have to keep our mouths shut." In other words, as Huang explained during the panel, if they control my income, then there would be no way that I would be able to dissent. Huang added, a world that permits central banks and governments to control people's income and to be able to expire people's monies in a world where that control that Lai Xiaobo feared would happen. As Seth for Privacy similarly noted during the discussion, the biggest takeaway from the conversations around CBDCs here at the Oslo Freedom Forum is that protests, activism, and dissidence become vastly more difficult if governments have total and trivial control of their citizens' money. The Oslo Freedom Forum is a humbling experience in a place where Paul Ruzambaga says he is no more than an ordinary man despite saving over 1,000 lives in Rwanda and surviving being kidnapped. It's reasonable to question what impact you could possibly have, yet pushing back can be as simple as speaking up. The majority of people have no idea what CBDC stands for, let alone the risks at hand. So in the mission to fight back, one of the most important things that can be done today is to make sure people actually know there is something we need to fight back against. So this concludes Crypto Top Headlines. If you haven't already done so, don't forget to click on the like and subscribe buttons as well as the notification bell. Also, leave your thoughts in the comments and share this video with your friends and family. Thank you all for watching Crypto Top Headlines, bringing crypto's news to you.